In England, secrets can hide in the smallest corners, behind old drawers, faded letters, and forgotten memories. Sarah never imagined that her grandfather's death would unlock a mystery that had been buried for decades. A hidden letter, a mysterious name, and whispers of a child long lost lead her on a journey she could never have imagined. From the gentle hills of her village to the bustling streets of London, Sarah follows the trail of a past full of love, sacrifice, and regret. Along the way, she uncovers truths that shake the very foundation of her family. Who was Elena? What happened to the child her grandfather once loved? And could a family torn apart by time and secrets ever be whole again? This is a story of courage, discovery, and the power of forgiveness. Every letter she reads, every conversation she has, brings her closer to a lost part of her family and closer to understanding that the past, no matter how painful, can lead to a new beginning. Chapter 1. The Funeral Silence. The church bells of St. Mary's rang slowly, their echoes rolling over the quiet English village. It was a gray morning, the kind that carried a weight of sorrow in the air. People moved silently through the old churchyard, their footsteps soft against the damp grass. Sarah stood near the front, her black coat pulled tightly around her. She was 29, with calm brown eyes that now shone with unshed tears. In front of her lay the wooden coffin of her grandfather, Arthur Bennett. He had lived his whole life in this village, respected and admired by everyone who knew him. To Sarah, he was more than a grandfather. He was a storyteller, a man of wisdom, the one who used to walk her through the orchard and tell her about the world. Now, all that was left was silence. Her grandmother, Margaret, sat quietly beside her, her wrinkled hands folded tightly together. Margaret's eyes were dry, but there was a heaviness in them that Sarah had never noticed before. When the priest finished his words and the coffin was lowered into the ground, Sarah felt an emptiness settle inside her chest. A strange thought came to her. There was something unfinished here, something left unsaid. After the funeral, the family gathered at the old Bennett house. The room smelled faintly of wood polish and old books. Photographs lined the walls, weddings, birthdays, generations of memories captured in frames. But even in the warmth of the house, Sarah felt a shadow, as though the walls themselves held secrets. She walked slowly into her grandfather's study. The room was neat, almost untouched. His books remained in order, his chair pushed under the desk, but on the desk itself was a drawer with a small brass lock. Sarah tried pulling it. It didn't move. Locked. Her grandmother entered quietly, her footsteps soft. She saw Sarah at the desk and froze for a moment. Her eyes lingered on the drawer, then quickly moved away. "Come, Sarah," she said softly, her voice almost trembling. "Leave his things for another day." Sarah nodded, but as she stepped back, her mind was already restless. Why did her grandmother's eyes hold such fear when they fell on that drawer? That night, as the rain tapped gently against her window, Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her grandfather had always been honest, open, and loving, but suddenly she felt as if she had only known part of him, just the surface. and beneath that surface, something waited to be discovered. Chapter 2. The Locked Drawer. The house was silent the next morning. The air carried a strange stillness, as if even the walls were mourning Arthur Bennett. Sarah wandered slowly down the hallway, her footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. Something inside her kept pulling her toward her grandfather's study. The study smelled faintly of dust and polished wood. Books stood in neat rows, their spines faded by time. The large window let in a pale, gray light. Sarah's eyes rested again on the desk, on the small brass drawer that had refused to open yesterday. She sat in her grandfather's chair. The drawer was smooth and cold under her fingers. She pulled once, locked. She tried again, harder this time. Still locked, still sealed, shut, closed. Her heart began to thump. Why would grandfather lock this? What was he protecting? She searched the shelves. Between two heavy books, she noticed something unusual, odd, strange, curious. It was a tiny key, rusty and thin, almost invisible in the shadows. Her hand trembled as she placed it in the lock. For a moment it resisted. Then, click. The drawer opened. Inside lay a bundle of letters, tied with a ribbon that had once been red, but was now faded, weak, dull, colorless. The paper was fragile, yellow with age, carrying the scent of years long gone. Sarah untied the ribbon and pulled out the first letter. The handwriting was delicate, careful, graceful, soft. She began to read. My dearest Arthur, the nights are long without you. I keep thinking of the day you will return. Our child grows stronger every day. I pray you will meet him soon. Yours, Elena. Sarah froze. Her lips parted, but no words came. A child, another woman. Her fingers tightened around the paper. She felt both fear and curiosity, confusion mixed with shock. Just then, her grandmother entered, carrying a tray of tea. The moment her eyes fell on the letters, the tray shook. The cups rattled together with a sharp sound. Sarah, Margaret said, her voice thin and shaking, put those back. Sarah looked up, her heart pounding. Grandma, who is Elena, and whose child is she talking about? Margaret's face drained of color. Her skin looked pale, white, lifeless, empty. Her hands clutched the edge of the table for support. You must not ask these questions, she whispered. Her voice was soft, but carried an edge, like fear wrapped in warning. Some truths bring only pain. But Sarah knew it was too late. The drawer was open, the letters were real, and the name Elena had already taken root in her heart, a mystery that demanded to be solved. Chapter 3. Whispers of the Past. That night the house felt colder than usual. Rain tapped against the windows, steady and soft, like fingers on glass. Sarah sat by the fire, her mind racing. The letters burned in her thoughts. Who was Elena, and what child was she talking about? Her grandmother sat across the room, knitting in silence. The firelight flickered across her face, showing lines of worry that Sarah had never noticed before. Finally, Sarah spoke. Grandma, she said gently, I need to know the truth. Margaret's hands stopped moving. The knitting needles froze in midair. For a moment she did not breathe. Then she lowered her hands and looked into the flames. There are things, she whispered, that should never be spoken. Secrets that are better buried, hidden, covered, concealed. But why? Sarah asked. Grandpa was an honest man. Why would he hide something so important? Her grandmother's lips trembled. She looked older, smaller, weaker than Sarah had ever seen. Because, she said slowly, the past is not only filled with love, it is also filled with mistakes, regrets, and wounds. Sarah leaned forward. Her heart ached. But Grandma, this is part of our family. I deserve to know. I need to know. Margaret turned her eyes toward Sarah, and for the first time her strong voice cracked. Your grandfather, he was a good man, brave, loyal, but before he married me, before he built this life, there was another chapter of his story, a chapter I begged him to close forever. Sarah's chest tightened. Elena, she whispered. The name alone made Margaret flinch, shiver, shake, tremble. Yes, her grandmother finally admitted. Elena, she was real. She was part of his life during the war, and the child she wrote about. She stopped, her voice breaking. The child was his. Sarah felt her whole world tilt. Her grandfather, the man she admired most, had another child, another family, hidden in the shadows of the past. Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. Sarah, she said firmly, do not search for them. Do not open that door again. Let the past stay in the past. But deep inside, Sarah knew the past would not rest. The whispers of Elena's letters were too strong, and the truth was calling her forward, no matter how painful it might be. Chapter 4. The Journey to London. The next morning, Sarah returned to her grandfather's study. Sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains, dust dancing in the golden beams. The bundle of letters lay spread on the desk, tied with the faded ribbon she had untied yesterday. She picked up the letters carefully, feeling the weight of years in her hands. Most of the letters spoke of love and longing. Elena wrote about her sleepless nights, about the war, about days filled with hope and nights filled with fear. But one letter was different. It carried an address in London. If you cannot return, I will wait for you at 14 Haversham Street, London. Our son deserves to know his father. Sarah's hands trembled as she held the letter. Each word seemed to pulse with life, urgent, desperate, pleading. She knew she could no longer ignore it. Her grandmother's warning echoed in her mind. Do not open that door again. But the truth had already started to escape from its hiding place, and Sarah felt she had no choice but to follow it. That afternoon, she packed a small bag with clothes, a notebook, and the letters. Margaret watched silently from the doorway, her eyes clouded with sorrow, sadness, worry, grief. Sarah, Margaret said softly, her voice trembling, London is far. The past is heavy. Let it rest. I can't, Sarah said firmly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I need to know, for me, for him, for all of us. The train ride was long, fields rolled past the window, green, endless, peaceful, but soon gave way to the gray, crowded streets of London. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the noise of the city was a constant hum of life, unlike the quiet village she had left behind. When she finally reached Haversham Street, Sarah felt her stomach twist. The narrow street was lined with old brick houses, their facades cracked with age, but still standing proud. Number 14 looked worn but sturdy, aged yet strong. Her hand shook as she knocked on the wooden door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed down the quiet street. Her heart raced, fast, quick, anxious. After a long moment, the door creaked open. An elderly woman stood there, her eyes sharp but kind. She looked at Sarah, then at the letter in her hands. "Arthur Bennett," the woman whispered, her voice trembling. "I never thought I'd hear that name again." Sarah froze. Her heartbeat seemed to stop. You knew him?" she asked, her voice small, uncertain. The woman nodded. "Yes, I knew him. Very well." She stepped aside and motioned for Sarah to enter. The house smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The walls were lined with photographs, black and white images of children, adults, and a younger man who looked very much like her grandfather. I need to know everything," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. "About Elena, about the child." The woman's eyes softened and she sat Sarah down at the old wooden table. "Then I will tell you," she said. "But the story, it is not simple. It is full of love, mistakes, and regrets, and it will change everything you thought you knew about your grandfather." Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and hope, two powerful, opposing emotions that twisted inside her chest. And in that small London house, the first real pieces of the past began to fall into place, like fragile puzzle pieces waiting to form a picture of a family long hidden from view. Chapter 5. The Missing Piece. Sarah sat at the old wooden table, the letters still clutched in her hands. The woman across from her, who introduced herself as Mrs. Collins, poured tea into delicate cups. Steam curled into the air, warm and fragrant, but Sarah barely noticed. Her mind was full of questions, too many questions, each one heavy, urgent, and impossible to ignore. "You want to know about Elena?" Mrs. Collins said softly. Her voice carried both sadness and strength. "And the child. I will tell you everything I remember." Sarah nodded. "Please, I need to know." Mrs. Collins took a deep breath. "During the war, your grandfather, Arthur, was stationed here in London. He was brave, kind, and young. One night, he met Elena. She was strong, beautiful, and alone, trying to survive in a city that had been shattered by bombs. They fell in love, quickly, passionately, but secretly. Their love had to be hidden. It was dangerous, forbidden." Sarah's eyes widened. "But a child?" Mrs. Collins nodded. "Yes. Elena became pregnant. Your grandfather wanted to take responsibility. He wanted to protect them both, but he could not. Circumstances, war, family, everything forced him to make a terrible choice." "He left?" Sarah whispered, her throat tightened. "He left them?" Mrs. Collins's eyes filled with tears. "He stayed in your grandmother's life. He built a family here in the village. He thought that was the only way to survive, to live. But he never forgot Elena or the child. He wrote letters whenever he could, but they were always hidden. He feared they might cause pain or shame." Sarah felt a mix of anger and sorrow. Her grandfather, whom she had admired so much, had another life she never knew about. Another child, possibly alive, somewhere in London. The thought twisted her stomach. "Do you know where he is?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Mrs. Collins nodded. "I do. He is alive, older now, living not far from here. Your grandfather's letters were meant to guide you to him one day, if the child ever wanted to know his father. Sarah's hands shook. The letters felt heavier than before, as if they carried the weight of decades of secrets. I have to find him, she said. Mrs. Collins reached out and held her hand. Be careful, Sarah. Meeting him will not be easy. There is fear, pain, and also hope. But the choice is yours. Sometimes the missing piece is exactly what completes a family. Sometimes it hurts, and sometimes it heals. Sarah nodded, feeling both dread and determination, opposite yet connected feelings, like two sides of the same coin. She left the house later that day, the letters and Mrs. Collins's story burning in her mind. Somewhere in London, a man awaited her, her grandfather's lost child, Dot. The puzzle of the past was coming together, one piece at a time, and Sarah knew that when she found him, nothing in her life or her family would ever be the same again. Chapter 6. The First Meeting. Sarah's heart pounded as she walked through the quiet London street. The letter from Elena had led her here, to a small, weathered house tucked between taller buildings. The bricks were dark with age, and the door looked sturdy but familiar, almost welcoming. She raised her hand and knocked. Knock, knock, knock. Each sound echoed in her chest like a drum of nervous anticipation. The door opened slowly. A man stood there. He was tall, with silver-streaked hair and deep brown eyes that seemed to carry years of unanswered questions. Sarah froze. You must be Sarah," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I've been waiting in a way I never imagined." Sarah swallowed hard. I think you are my grandfather's child, Elena's son." He nodded. "Yes, I am Michael. And you are?" "Sarah, Arthur Bennett's granddaughter." The words felt strange on her tongue, as if saying them out loud made the truth more real. Michael's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and a hint of fear. "Your grandfather, he never spoke of me." "Never." Sarah shook her head. "Neither did my grandmother. I only found the letters, and I had to come." For a long moment they just stared at each other, the weight of decades between them. The air was thick with unspoken words. Anger, sadness, curiosity, longing. Michael stepped aside, inviting her in. The house smelled faintly of old books and lavender, calm but alive. Sarah noticed photographs on the wall. A young boy with Elena, smiling, unaware of the hardships to come. "I never knew my father," Michael said quietly, sitting at the table. "I grew up with stories, but always felt something missing." Sarah nodded, tears prickling her eyes. "I know. I grew up loving my grandfather, thinking I knew everything about him. But now, I realize there was so much hidden, so much I never understood." Michael reached for one of the letters Sarah carried. His fingers trembled as he unfolded the delicate paper. "Elena, she loved him so much," he whispered, "and he loved her, even if he couldn't stay." They sat together for hours, sharing stories, questions, and small fragments of the past. Sometimes there was anger, sometimes sorrow, sometimes laughter at memories that survived despite the years. By the end of the evening, something had shifted. The distance between them, the invisible wall built by years of silence, began to crumble. Sarah realized that the lost child she had sought was no longer a stranger. He was family, and for the first time, the past seemed like a bridge, not a barrier. Chapter 7. The Broken Circle. News of Sarah's discovery traveled quickly through the village. By the next morning, whispers filled the streets. Some neighbors were curious, others suspicious, and at the Bennett house the air felt heavy, tense, fragile, delicate. Sarah returned home with Michael, determined to introduce him to her grandmother. But Margaret's reaction was immediate and sharp. Her hands shook and her voice cracked with anger. "Sarah, how could you bring him here after everything we've done to protect this family?" Sarah stepped forward. "Grandma, please. It's the truth. We can't hide it anymore. Michael is family. He deserves to know us, just as we deserve to know him." Margaret's eyes filled with tears, grief, frustration, fear. "This will ruin everything. People will talk. The past will be exposed. Everything your grandfather tried to protect, destroyed." Michael spoke calmly, but with firmness. "Mrs. Bennett, I do not wish to harm anyone. I only wish to know my family, to understand my father, and to heal the years lost." The tension in the room was thick, almost suffocating, but Sarah held her ground. "Grandma, keeping secrets only brings pain. We can fix this. We can make it right." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Margaret's face softened, her shoulders slumping. She looked at Michael, then at Sarah, and finally at the family photographs on the wall. I feared this day," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I wanted to protect everyone. I wanted to keep the past buried. But perhaps I was wrong." Slowly, Margaret reached out and held Michael's hand. Her grip was weak but sincere, an olive branch, a sign of acceptance. Tears streamed down their faces, but this time they were not only for sorrow, they were for healing, for love, for the missing pieces finally coming together. Sarah smiled through her own tears. The broken circle of their family was beginning to mend, one fragile step at a time. By the evening, the house felt lighter. Conversations flowed, stories were shared, and laughter, small but genuine, echoed through the rooms. The secret that had once caused pain was now the key to connection, forgiveness, and understanding. Sarah realized that family was not just about who you grew up with, but also about who you chose to embrace, today, tomorrow, and always. Chapter 8. A New Beginning. The next morning, sunlight filled the Bennett house. The soft glow made the wooden floors shine, warm and comforting. Sarah walked through the rooms, feeling a calm she hadn't felt in weeks. The weight of the past was still there, but lighter, gentler, like a burden shared instead of carried alone. Michael joined her in the garden. The old oak tree cast long shadows across the grass, and birds chirped quietly in the crisp morning air. It was a peaceful contrast to the storm of emotions they had endured. "I never thought this day would come," Michael said softly. "I always imagined my father as a stranger I would never meet. And now, here I am with my family." Sarah smiled. "He made mistakes, yes, but he also left clues, letters, and hope. And now we have the chance to build something new, together." At that moment, Margaret stepped outside. She looked at them, then at the garden, and a small, genuine smile appeared on her face. For the first time in weeks, there was no fear, only acceptance, love, and hope. They stood together by the oak tree, the three of them forming a circle that had once been broken. The past was remembered, but it no longer controlled them. The secret that had caused pain had become a bridge, connecting hearts that had been separated for decades. "Family isn't perfect," Margaret said quietly. "It is full of mistakes, secrets, and challenges, but it is also full of love, forgiveness, and new beginnings." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the truth of her grandmother's words. She looked at Michael, at the house, at the letters that had started it all. She realized that every hidden word, every secret, every painful moment had led them here, together, whole, and ready to move forward. The sun rose higher, golden, and bright, and the village seemed alive in a new way. Sarah knew that their family story would no longer be hidden, that it could now grow with honesty, courage, and love. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hope, strong, steady, and real. A new beginning had arrived,